Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're going to talk about modifications to buzzbaits and spinnerbaits. We're going to talk about how to tune them and some things you can do to change their actions. Now this video comes as a direct request from you guys. Down in the comments on one of our videos, somebody asked for how to tune buzzbaits and spinnerbaits once they're knocked out of tune. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's start with spinnerbaits. Now some of this information we've talked about before, but a spinnerbait right out of the package will typically run perfectly true. It'll run upright, it won't run nose up or nose down, it won't tip side to side, it runs perfect. That's the way they build them. But as you start catching fish, these things start just getting mangled, right? Everybody's caught a spinnerbait fish and had it come back looking like that. Well, now what do? Well, it depends on your next cast. What is that bait doing? That's going to help you decide. If it's running funny, if it's running blades up, nose down, well then the solution is to grab that whole thing and just squeeze it shut a few times. It gets those blades back in line so that your hook and your blades are right in line with a perfect V above them. If we're out of that, it won't track right. So that's the first thing. Just scrunch that thing back down. Very, very simple. And then you also want to look at it top to bottom and see, is it out of whack one way or the other? And if it is, you straighten that back up as well. Very simple tuning a spinnerbait. Once you do that, it'll start tracking right. Now, if it doesn't track right, that tells me that something is wrong in the design of that bait. Sorry, the boat's drifting. We got branches all over. Welcome to the real world. It's possible that it's just not a perfectly designed bait. See this one, for example, this Revenge Deep Runner, little tiny blades. This one, this is a River to Sea Bling, and it actually started out looking like this. I upsized blades, but when you start messing with things like that, it can throw it out of whack. We've talked before about changing blade sizes so that you can speed up or slow down a retrieve as well as change action, and that's important. And you know what, I'm not even gonna skim over that. I'm just gonna talk about it again. When you get a bait, we'll take this one for example, 3/8 ounce head. Comes with what's on here, a 4.5 up front, and a 3.5 in the back. I assume that's what that is, or maybe that's a 35 and a 45 millimeter, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what those numbers are, but that's how it starts. 3/8 ounce, it's gonna track perfectly. But if I feel like my bait is going too fast with that setup, well then I can take that blade off. I can go to a bigger blade, replace that, put that big blade on, and all of a sudden I can slow down my retrieve because that bigger blade, the way it's turning is wider and it will slow everything down. Flip side, if I feel like I can't go fast enough, I drop down to little blades and I can speed it up and still maintain my pace. And this is something, again, we've talked about this before, but down in the video description, I'm gonna give you links to the different blades that we use, some different sizes, because we're talking like a $20 or $30 investment in blades. You can change colors, you can change sizes. Say I'm throwing an all white blades like this and I'm catching them early in the morning. Sun starts coming up, my bite starts going away. Well, one of two things happened. Either my spinnerbait bite died, or because I'm white on white on white on white, they can see it too well and they're not biting. So I could throw on another spinnerbait, but I like this spinnerbait. So instead, blade comes off, I replace it with a smaller all silver blade, and lo and behold, I discover my spinnerbait bite didn't go anywhere. Now they're not getting quite as good a look at it. I'm getting better flash out of it, and they're eating again. So for $20 or $30 in blades, you can create a little box for yourself that lets you fine tune your spinnerbait bite like never before. Very, very important. But remember, when you're doing this, you can also throw the baits out of whack because they were designed to be run a certain way. So if you go to too big of a blade and all of a sudden your bait runs through the water funny like this, right? Instead of being flat, now it's running kind of nose up. That tells you that blade has too much drag in the water. You've overdone it and you need to come down one blade size. If your bait's falling too quickly, in other words, you want to fish higher in the column and all of a sudden you can't see your bait anymore, it's dropping down, you went too small. If you go one size larger, it's going to help draw that bait back up and it's going to run true. I hope that makes sense for you guys. It's a lot of information to process, but really it's very simple. At the end of the day, what I'm saying is you buy 2 or 3 colors of blades. Maybe get some silver, some gold, some white. Those are good standard colors to start with. And you get them in a couple of sizes. You can tune a spinnerbait and get a spinnerbait bite going when everything else is already shut down. They've already turned away from your bait. You can bring it right back and you might even be able to catch bigger fish because all of a sudden you could fish at different speed, more flash, less flash, more color in dirty water. There are a lot of things you can do to fine tune as well as tuning that bait to get it to run true. Now, buzz baits. Doesn't matter what kind of buzz bait you're running, whether you're running a single blade, plastic, metal, skirted, not skirted, something a little bit different like the double plopper, double blades. They're all fairly similar. They all require tuning. When you catch fish on a buzz bait, they're going to get bent up. But on the flip side, you can actually tune buzz baits to work for you. Most of the time, buzz baits run perfectly true, and that's how you want it. But let's say we're working a shoreline, okay, and we're gonna be running this shoreline for the next mile. We're just covering water. And I'm paralleling the bank. Say there's riprap or weeds, and I'm trying to run right down that edge. Well, then why do I want a bait that runs true in the first place? There's no reason, because I throw right up tight, and then as I bring it out to my boat, I'm slowly leaving the shore. Well, that doesn't make sense. I'm only in the strike zone part of the time. So instead, tune your buzzbait. You take that blade and you bend it. Bend it off to one side, just a little bit. Make your next cast. Lo and behold, that bait is now fighting you and it's trying to pull towards shore. So if you're on a parallel cast and you were landing up near shore, coming out, landing near shore, coming out. Well, now it's fighting you. You're landing near shore and it's staying in tight despite working its way out to you. It's trying to hug the shoreline. You're fishing docks and you want to be able to go right up under the edge of a dock. Well, tune that thing, bend it the other way. Now you can get it to suck right up under the edge, right in the shadow of that dock. There's no reason you shouldn't be tuning your buzzbaits. Now on the flip side, if they start running funny, like if they're rolling completely on their side, they're out of tune. You've gone too far, or you caught some fish and they bent it. Now you need to, again, bring it back down and make sure it's straight and in line with your main wire. So the wire that the blade is on and the main wire going to your hook are in line. If those are in line, it should track perfectly true. If it's not tracking true, then it's not the best bait in the world, but you could try something like adding a trailer, and that will give it more resistance in the water, and that will help it track true. There are a lot of things you can do. Double buzz baits. The biggest issue I see with double buzzers, when you start catching fish, these things get all bent out of whack, right? Now it's all messed up. Well, when you start trying to retune them and get them right, if you do it wrong, see how they're not perfectly in line there? But at first glance, it looks great. You go to make your next cast to the double buzzer. When you throw a double buzz, what you're looking for is two props spinning perfectly in unison. If they're not, what will happen is that one will work harder than the other. So you'll have one that rises and one that digs in. It'll cause that bait, not only does it not look right, it stops getting bit. It'll also catch debris, because a double buzz is a fairly weedless bait. You can get it over a lot of grass. But if you have a blade that's trying to dig because the other one is trying to lift, that blade that's digging, the one that's down, is gonna be catching grass. You're gonna have a nightmare on your hands. The best way to tell if a double buzz is tuned is throw it out and run it faster than you should. Because you should have both blades pick up above the surface of the water at the same rate, and they'll look the same. If you go to burn it and one side digs in and one side lifts out, you know it's not right. Even if it's looking right at slower speeds, it's not perfect. So speed it up and check that it's not rolling one way or the other. If it is, you just match your wires, get your wires bent straight, then you look at them head on. You check that the angle is the same. They're bent the same distance in or out. Once they match, you're good to go. Now, like any other wired bait, tuning them over time is going to wear them out. So be aware of that. If you're bending wires quite a bit, if you're doing a lot of this stuff, retire the bait before it costs you a fish. You can tell when you first start fishing a spinnerbait and you're catching fish on it and it's staying tuned, and then all of a sudden every fish, it starts bending, it's wearing out. If you start making casts and it starts getting a little out of tune and you didn't even catch a fish, it's done. Retire that bait before it costs you money, before you lose a fish, before that fish of a lifetime eats that thing, turns its head, breaks it off, and you reel up a set of blades, or you reel up nothing and the hook is gone. Be proactive. They cost money, but it's better to retire them than to lose fish. But you can do a lot of this stuff. You can bend these things and work them for a long time before you get there. But just be aware, if it starts getting out of tune on its own, it's probably time to retire that one. I hope that helps you guys. Down in the video description, again, we'll give you links to the blades. We'll give you links to all these different baits, because there's a bunch of baits that we have confidence in. These are some of our favorites. That's why I picked these up. I'll give you links to each of those. Maybe even give you links to some of the trailer options that you should be throwing, as well as some colors. I hope that helps you guys. We appreciate those comments down in the description. We can't respond to everybody, but we do our best, and we really do see all of them. That's where these videos come from. So continue leaving those comments, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're loving growing this thing with you guys, and we are here to help you be better fishermen. We'll talk to you soon.